Jeffrey Manber is the CEO of NanoRacks, which provides payload services for all of the SSEP payloads. And you know, we were kind of dreaming this program up back in 2009. 2009, we were sitting there for lunch doing a little drawing on the back of an envelope, or no, it was a napkin at a restaurant. And we turned this vision into reality. And so we have the education back end, the National Center for Earth and Space Science Education, which has the strategic philosophy of approach as to what this program is about. But, you know, vision is great, but if you really want to have a space program, you need somebody to interface with NASA and provide all of the payload services for launch and return to Earth. So NanoRacks has provided that remarkable partnership with us. They are a strategic partner with us. And I also wanted to point out, and Stacy, it's locked. All fours? Okay.
Now we know. Yeah.
I wanted to say it right, okay? Because Jeff received the Space Pioneer Award for entrepreneurship from the National Space Society. Just recently, was in April?
Yeah.
April. So congratulations.
Thank you. You're part of that. So, thank you, Dr. Jeff. And Dr. Jeff is correct. I mean, that we thought this through over a napkin. I think it was in Old Town Alexandria for those of you who are from here. And I guess I'd like to start by saying I've spent my career in the space station business. Now, there's not many people that can say that, which is pretty cool for me. And the second thing is the International Space Station is not my first space station. I worked on a space station called the Mir Space Station. And that was owned and operated by the Russians. And over time, my Dutch company, Mir Corp, took over the Russian space station. And we did experiments. We signed with Mark Burnett of Survivor, if you know that show, and NBC to do a game show where the winner would go to space. But we weren't able, as Dr. Jeff said, we weren't able to implement. And things just went wrong with that station. It was near the end of its life. So I've spent a long time working on space stations. And one other thing to say is, you know, we take for granted that what you're doing with this program. And I spend a lot of time traveling around the world for space utilization. And I have to tell you, there's not a program like this in Russia. There's not a program like this in China. There's not a program like this in Europe. And this is a very unique program. And not only is it due to the imagination of Dr. Jeff, but it's also due to the way we in America are committed to making sure that you guys, the next generation, have this opportunity. I mean, you're working on the world's only orbiting space station. How cool is that? And there's not many other countries that allow to give up that precious astronaut time, that precious power, everything you're doing, the space on the launch vehicle, to the next generation. And so we're very lucky here, not only to have entrepreneurs like Dr. Jeff, but also to have a culture that says, let's be transparent and let's make this happen. I'll tell you, the most surprising thing for me has been the range of the experiments that you all come up with. Okay, when I look at the sheet, and we have to get NASA approval, and we have to look at it first. When I look at the experiments that you guys are doing, confession time, I only understand about a third of the science of what I mean, right? I mean, I'm not speaking for you. I mean, I don't get a lot of the things you're doing. So, you know, congratulations on that. So we know that in our hearts that space is not different than software, than innovation in general. And everyone, you know, no one's surprised anymore when a 15-year-old comes up with a new app. But people are still surprised when students are working in space. And we don't share that surprise at NanoRacks because of programs like this. We believe that space is no different than any other part of our society, of our industry, and just as 15-year-olds, 16, 19-year-olds are going on and doing great innovation and software, we know you guys are doing it in space. I don't have to tell you the range of things you can do in space. What I can tell you is one of the really cool things about space, and one of the reasons that I like a frontier, is that you know what? There are not many people that know more than you. I mean, all the things that you're grappling with, I heard the speaker say, this is the first time this is being done. There's not many areas of research where you can say that. There's not many areas, even in apps or even in games, and you can't say this is the first Xbox or this is the first whatever. And so what you're doing is really a frontier. And that's one of the really cool things about space research. Not only are you learning, but we are all learning. And who knows what projects and what products may come out in the future from everything that you are doing. This is my favorite, okay? A tardigrade. Tardigrade is my favorite animal because it's been shown. I know that some of the students have worked on them in some way, but also it survived outside the space station. I mean, how weird is that? Okay, mostly the Russians have worked with tardigrades, and they've put them outside the space station. I mean, it's also pretty cute looking. That's what it takes to survive in space, Jeff. This is what it takes. The more we can look like this, the more we will survive. So the Russians have done studies where they've taken tardigrades and they put them outside the space station, and after 6 months, they bring them back in and they're alive. And what they do is, they're like turtles. They just withdraw, and they shrink into a ball, and they shut down. Okay, and so I always say that this should be the model for entrepreneurs in space. Okay, we go into a ball until it's possible. And one of the reasons I'm joking is, not only are what you doing is unique, but also what Dr. Jeff and I are doing, and others like us, because there's a lot of people saying, why should we let a NanoRacks work on the space station? Why should we let students work on the space station? So it all looks smooth, but there's a lot of work that goes on to allow all of you to have this incredible opportunity. So what's our job? We're sort of like, you guys know what a concierge is, kind of like at a hotel you go. We're the ones who say, okay, you want to work on the International Space Station. What flight do we put you on? So we have to start like 9 months before. Okay, and everybody, right, most of you probably have Amazon Prime. You think everything's going to happen overnight. We have all sorts of new customers who come to us and say, 9 months, 9 months. Well, we're the fastest in the business. NASA's 3 years to go through their own system. I mean, I love NASA, but they're 3 years. We're 9 months. So what we do is we find the launch vehicle, and then we have to work with NASA to reserve the space in the launch vehicle. I don't know if you've thought about it. Your stuff has gone, or the ones who are working on new projects is going to go on a launch vehicle, a rocket ship. How does that happen? Well, I have 4 guys in Houston that do nothing but schedule the astronaut time. I have 7 guys in Houston who do the safety, okay, because NASA wants to make sure it's safe before they let it onto the space station. And we have to reserve down to the never mind, kilogram, centimeter of every square, I'll mix metaphor, every square inch is taken up. I don't know if they're square centimeters, so every square inch is taken up on a launch vehicle. And right now, we're battling on SpaceX 18 to get a customer on. And we're battling down for, can you just get it in? So our job is to make sure it goes through the NASA system, make sure it's reserved. We then work with the astronauts, and it's like 3 months, 5 months ahead, down to 15-minute increments. And then we have a mission control in Houston, and we make sure, and my mission control guys talk to the astronauts and make sure that everything is done correctly. And then we make sure they don't throw it away. That's happened. What happened once? That it gets put back in the box and it gets returned on the Dragon, and then it has to be picked up. So there's dozens and dozens and dozens of steps. This is not routine. I don't know, this is 13, I guess mission 13 and mission 14 coming up, and but it's not routine. There's always issues, it's pushing a frontier. Why is today, I mean, this is an important time. One of the reasons is there seems to be a commitment for us to return to the moon, this time to stay. And so it's been far too long since humans have been on the moon. And we did it with, if you have the time, if you look around at some of this old equipment, and we went to the moon with vacuum tubes and black and white television. If any of you've seen, the Apollo movie, it does bring home that we did it. It's not the technology, it's the spirit, and it's the mind, the mindset. And this time it looks like we are returning to the moon to stay. And I believe it. I think this time, will we make 2024? I don't know, but I think we're going back, and you have to be part of that. You're going to lead it in many ways. So this time is more important. And as the administrator of NASA, Jim Bridenstine, has made clear, it will be a 2-person crew, the first woman and the next man. And so that's way cool. And so you're at the right time, you're at the right place to make a difference, and we need your help. And so here's some of the things that we see as the challenges for returning to the moon and then going on to Mars. And again, it's a lot of basics. How do you survive? How do you grow food? I mean, NASA ice cream, powdered ice cream, you've all seen that, you don't want to live on that. Okay, so, I mean, I hate to break the news to you, but you don't want to live on that. So we have an understanding of how to grow lettuce and some others, but we have really not had the opportunity to understand a lot of basic things. We know humans can live in space for a year, but we don't know yet how to make sure they're happy, and how do you make sure you're comfortable. And not only is that the right thing to do, but if you're happy and comfortable, you'll be creative and you'll be a good explorer. We don't want it like 100 years ago when they were going to the Arctic Circle and they could barely make it. And so there's a lot of challenges ahead. And again, we need your innovation, and what you're doing is important. So looking to the future, the ISS will not last forever. And we're now designing what we call an outpost. And it's going to be devoted to research. We're not going to be focused on tourism. We're looking at being focused on a facility that will not be attached to the space station. It will be in the vicinity. We don't want our guys lonely or anything. So it will be in the vicinity, and it will just be filled with research and hardware. And the astronauts, some of whom will work for the government, like NASA, and some will maybe you. I mean, some will be folks working for companies and researchers, and they'll come and visit. And why is that important? Because one of the lessons we have learned from from our first space station, Skylab, and the first Russian station, Salyut, and then Mir, and then International Space Station, is it's really tough doing good research and in-space manufacturing when you have people on a bicycle pedaling, and people visiting for tourism don't want to see industrial facilities. So at NanoRacks, our future is going to be doing, in a larger sense, what you're doing now. We're going to have our own platform. It will be about 3/4 the size of a school bus. So, I mean, it'll be big. And it will have all sorts of hardware. And when you're in university and when you're researchers, you'll come and you'll say, hey, I worked on the ISS with NanoRacks, and now I'm working on this outpost, and the quality of what we do there will help us get onto Mars. So really, that's it. I just wanted and thank Dr. Jeff for giving me the opportunity to come out. And this is just a look at one of the things we're doing at NanoRacks is we're working on repurposing the second stage of launch vehicles. And so right now, you've probably heard Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they are reusing the first stage, and that's way cool. We proved to NASA's satisfaction that you could reuse the second stage, the fuel tank. We don't bring it back down to Earth. We have robots, and these robots, through Maxar, are on the surface of Mars right now. And so when the fuel empties out, we open robotically the top of the spent fuel tank. All what's left rushes out in the vacuum of space, and meanwhile we've loaded it with about 300 kilograms of stuff, and the robots can build a research platform. And so instead of throwing away, right now we throw away so much in space. It's not just on Earth, but we throw these things away, or we put them in what's called a graveyard shift, a graveyard, I guess, and they just stay there forever. And so what we're doing at NanoRacks is building up the expertise to how you take an empty fuel tank, and then one day you can use it for a research platform. So that's our future. And so again, we need you to be part of that. So I think that's it. That's some of the nano labs and from different customers. There's a German contest we did with the astronauts at the German Space Agency. So we need you to be part of the future. You are the future, and thank you for giving me the chance to make your dreams and aspirations in space reality. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Hello, I'm Rubens. I'm from Florida, Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
I would like to know, we see NanoRacks supporting the microgravity researchers and their families and the community. We wanted to know two things. How is the funding for your future projects, and how can us and the community in broader sense help NanoRacks to grow and provide even more opportunities?
Well, it's a great question, two great questions, and really Dr. Jeff is the one who toils night and day to make sure there's the funding. But NanoRacks is unique in that we have grown. We're 70 people now, and we've grown on the revenue from customers. Now, if we were on the ground and it was a restaurant, you'd say, sure, that's how you do it. But in space, it's somehow different. Oh, no, there's not. When we started NanoRacks, we were the first company in the world to own our own stuff, to use a technical term, our own stuff on the space station. Okay, and when Dr. Jeff and I were sitting there with that napkin, no one else had their private stuff on the space station. So this is all an experiment. Really the answer, and I'm not being cute, is to continue to mobilize in the community. NASA is continually surprised that there are schools doing what you're doing, that there are people supporting what you're doing. Because, and I love NASA, but they're government people. And so they think everything must come from Congress. And so we couldn't be doing what we're doing without Congress. They paid for the space station, but keep doing what you're doing. The more schools you can get involved, the more students. Sometimes, you know, we've talked about this, but we go around on the Hill. Sometime we should probably go around on the Hill together. We go around on the Hill and we see all these very powerful senators and congresspeople. Why? Because we bring students who have worked in their district, or we bring, you know, so the more you can do, the better. It's a grassroots effort. Thank you. Thank you very much.